Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being here and hope that you're safe, healthy, and doing as well as you can be given the state of the world in 2020. I'm coming to you from New York City, the recently classified anarchist jurisdiction of New York City, on a lovely fall weather morning here in the city. And I'm really excited to share today's episode with you because my guest on the show today is Kevin Mahoney. Kevin is the guitarist for one of my favorite pop punk bands, Hit the Lights. Their album Skip School Start Fights was on pretty near constant rotation in the stereo of my Ford Focus that I used to have when it came out back in 2007, I believe. Kevin is also the touring bassist for the indie rock band Joywave, and he's also the producer for the newest Goalkeeper EP Life in Slow Motion. If you've listened to any of my recent episodes with the members of Goalkeeper, you've heard me talk about this EP a lot, which I really, really enjoyed. And Kevin is the producer on that, so lots of the sounds that you hear on that EP come from him, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. This episode really has a lot of everything that I love. When I talk to musicians, it is lots of great guitar and recording talk. And Hit the Lights have toured in Japan extensively, and we get into that a lot because if you've listened to the show recently, you know that's a big thing that I like to talk about as well. And if you're listening to this podcast for the first time, thanks for taking a chance on somebody that you probably have never heard of. I really appreciate that. And it's because of the kindness of my guests like Kevin and others that I'm able to have these kinds of like great conversations and find people such as yourselves. So I really appreciate you taking the chance on a podcast that you may not have heard of before. So if you enjoy this and you think you have a friend who might want to listen to this as well, we are on all of the big podcasting services: Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music. And I have over 180 other episodes with a lot of different, very interesting and cool people for you guys to enjoy. So if you enjoyed this, thank you for being here. And let's get right into it. Let's get to my chat with Kevin Mahoney of Hit the Lights. Not that I want to go down that rabbit hole too much, but my entire feeling watching the debate was like I kept thinking of that Alkaline Trio album, Maybe I'll Catch Fire. That's how I felt the entire time watching that. And given the crazy news today, I didn't think these would be the circumstances that we would be having this interview either.
Yeah. The debate I expected to be very similar to that, but today's news I did not see coming.
Oh my God. And then with like it's like everybody, someone in the circle, they keep names keep coming up as testing positive. It's like Game of Thrones.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, they're just dropping like flies, man. Dude, I wanted to tell you. So, I was very surprised and excited when I was interviewing everybody in Goalkeeper for their new EP, and when I found out you were the producer, I was like, this makes total sense because I think the production on that EP is stellar, dude. Like a phenomenal job by everyone involved.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you so much.
And I was curious to ask before we get into like Hit the Lights and Joywave and stuff. How long has your career as a producer been? Is this relatively new, or has that been going on for a while?
It's actually been going on for a while. If I had to think back, because I'm not actually sure when I started, but um, I guess maybe like 2014
Mm-hmm.
is maybe when I started getting serious, or maybe slightly earlier. But um, being in the studio was always one of my favorite parts about being in a band in general. I
Mm-hmm.
loved, the ability to just like live in the record for a period of time and create something, and then it
Yeah.
lasts forever. And that was very like intriguing to me. So I got into it, but I didn't want to like, anytime you try to go out and be a producer, I mean, it's a very hard thing to cut your teeth at.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of competition, and you're gonna have to work on some stuff that like you're not that stoked on. So I
Sure.
figured, instead of working on stuff I'm not that stoked on, I'll just learn how to do it very slowly and only try to do stuff that I think is really cool here and there. And just been kind of like an experiment. And so far, it's working out great. It's been a lot of fun, and it's awesome that I have people like Will and Goalkeeper that both trust me and let me do these kind of things.
Definitely. And because I feel like at a certain point, like I feel like your track record and like that guy's band's awesome. I love those albums. Maybe we could create something awesome. I really am vibing with what you're saying about kind of living in the record because this year I started having this idea like earlier in March when I was talking to when I started talking to people in bands. I was like, I can't go out and play shows, but I could probably learn to record stuff at home. So I've been like diving into amp sims and like learning Easy Drummer and just really having a good time with it. Like it's kind of like the mad scientist aspect of it.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
how can I make this song better? What if we did this sound? When you go into to produce a band, do you have a general approach, or does that tend to vary on the from project to project?
Well, so obviously I haven't gotten to do too many other people's projects, but I mean, so far it definitely varies. It's all going to be based on personalities and what exactly the record or the songs need.
Mm-hmm.
But the general thing that stays the same, obviously, is there's a lot of mental space taken up by what you envision tone to be
Mm-hmm.
and dynamics, and then the rest is just the whole focus is on the song. Because it's kind of my thought that nothing else really matters. Even if you completely fail at the producing side,
Mm-hmm.
if the songs are great, people are going to love it either way.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Did you have a well, just to use Life in Slow Motion as an example, did you have a vision for like the overall sound or tone when you heard those songs initially?
Absolutely. I really liked, they don't do it's kind of simple how they do songs, like
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of overplaying. It's a three piece.
Yeah,
So it leaves a lot of room to just make things very big and very open and very powerful.
yeah.
And I feel like a lot of stuff kind of misses that. And I feel like some of the older pop punk bands like Blink 182,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, when you put some of these newer records on, they're so big from those old bands. And I wanted to make something that was a new band that has those simple characteristics that you can kind of make huge. And they were game to play around with it, and it was fun. We kind of layered in some secret stuff in with the guitars and did a lot of kept a lot of minds on dynamics and stuff. So sometimes things are small on purpose so that the next part sounds even bigger.
Right, because you're playing with dynamics like leading, like getting quiet before you explode into the chorus, so the chorus like hits you that much harder.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that kind of that makes sense to me. Do you have a general like what to you what is the perfect pop punk guitar tone? And the reason I ask this is because I feel like and correct me if you think I'm off base here. I feel like there is a certain like year where all of the pop punk bands decided they were done with like Marshall and Mesa and we're all moving over to Orange and Vox amps, and there's that kind of like the distortion from like Blink and and like Green Day early Green Day records or even like Warning is very different from like The Story So Far, Man Overboard, Goalkeeper, like bands like that. And I feel like Hit the Lights were maybe sort of right in the transition window for that time. So I'm curious what your approach to guitar tone is.
My approach to guitar tone really changes. It's all whatever the song or whatever like the project is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so obviously, like Hit the Lights was kind of riffy. So,
Yeah.
you couldn't really dial back on the gain. You kind of had to really own it and
Right.
kind of
Right.
go for like a heavy gain. So, I mean, usually anytime we were doing guitar for Hit the Lights, the only things we were ever trying to reference was like Pantera. And I
Oh,
know that that doesn't
interesting.
make sense when you listen to Hit the Lights, but like if you turn some of those like major key riffs just minor, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that literally is a Pantera riff.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. You're just making it slightly more like
We're
scary
just making
sounding.
it happy. That's all we're doing.
Uh-huh, totally. Kind of like yeah, cuz when I think of like hit the lights, and I remember my first Hit the Lights record was Skip School Start Fights. And I remember initially being drawn to it because I was in like my Akira Kurosawa phase, and the artwork kind of reminded me of Ran, the
Okay.
poster for that, like because that has a white background and bright splotches of what looks like paint. So it kind of reminded me of that. But I remember that was maybe after. I remember there being like a lot of space in between the riffs. It wasn't just like a train, like chugga 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 the whole time. I remember there being kind of like a lot of room for like hit the chord like on breathe in or a song like that, like
Hmm.
leaving a lot of room to kind of like feel the groove, so to speak. So the Pantera comparison makes total sense to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of everything has a groove for us, and honestly, all of that is Nick. Actually, he's big into like the groove. That's what he wants to feel in a song, which is really cool to have somebody who has a lot of focus on that. So that helps kind of push things forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also, there's like a lot of like '80s influence too, '80s pop, and that also leaves for a lot of like things where you're doing riffs with a lot of room for vocals. So yeah, that's kind of the how we think of the hit the light sound. At least it's '80s pop and Pantera turned into I don't know Newfound Glory or something.
Oh yeah, no, I can totally see it because I guess I had never heard the phrase easy core until like maybe last year,
Okay, yeah,
and then when I started going back and listening to Hit the Lights like leading up to this, I was like, oh yeah, no, I can kind of see like the some traces of that because you kind of have those like again you have those kind of like happy like stabby happy grooves, but then there's also like yeah, I can totally hear the '80s influence because you have these like really big like kind of like arena rock kind of sounds like it like kind of instills like this kind of sweeping of emotion in so many of the songs.
yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you. I know Hit the Lights started in Ohio. Are you originally from Ohio?
No, actually, from Rochester, New York.
Oh, Rochester.
Yeah,
Oh, nice. I have not. I've never been to Rochester, but everything I've heard is that like there is a. It seems like there's a really great like punk and pop punk scene in Rochester.
yeah. There's always been like this really cool underground music scene there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very big, but there's always something coming out of there, which is really cool to be a part of. So when I played in Polar Bear Club, we were all from Rochester, New York.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one. Such Gold, one of like the best bands in music, I think, and they're from
Uh-huh.
Rochester. They're awesome. Bunch of good bands.
Oh, awesome. And Rochester's kind of like it's not a small city, but it's not kind of it's kind of like in between. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a good like medium-sized city with a lot of good food.
Oh, excellent. That's cool, man. And so you grew up there, and like when you were when you first started getting into music, I'm not sure what age this was. Do you remember a specific album that like really blew your mind when you were younger?
I mean, I think everything was blowing my mind when I was younger. It was all for the first time.
Uh huh.
Um, but I mean, like my favorite memories were like, either driving in the car with my dad and listening to like old Motown, or
Oh
driving in
yeah.
the car with my mom listening to like, whatever the pop radio was in the '80s. A lot of Tears for Fears and Madonna and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I really liked those worlds, and then you get old enough to find music yourself, and the kids at school started showing me like heavier things, and skateboarding showed me punk rock, and
Uh huh.
every kind of like period of time probably had a very specific sound that was life changing for me. um, but the hope is that every few years you find a record that's life changing for you.
Oh yeah. Like and
I'm just trying to make one of those records.
yeah. Same. Like I and as I'm like approaching like my mid 30s, like those records, like those moments where you're just like, holy shit, they come fewer and farther between. But when they still happen for me, it's just like I go right back to being 13 and hearing Dumpweed for the first time, and just like,
Absolutely.
oh man, how do I make that sound? I want to learn how to make that. Motown is big for me also. I remember like the big. I remember my mom had the Big Chill soundtrack on CD, which is like an '80s movie, so it was like oldies. But at the time that movie came out, and like especially like for talking about groove, like Motown is all groove. It's like built on groove and hook.
Absolutely. It's all groove and hook, which like what could be better?
Oh yeah, totally. And then especially for like for bass, because like I'm playing bass in a band for the first time now, and I've found myself like listening to a lot of different stuff that I didn't grow up on because the bass is so good. So like what's a I'm trying to think of what a good example would be. Or even just like heard it the first time I heard it through the grapevine, just hearing that gentle pulse of like you can't not move when you hear that song.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah, there's something about bass, back then that was the bass guitar definitely had a moment.
I think so. Absolutely. So you're and like for 80s stuff, like I remember getting really into Big Country for a couple years when I was in high school. I don't know if you're super familiar with them.
Not super familiar actually.
Uh, I guess they were one hit wonder in the U.S., but they were very big in the U.K. They had that song like "In a Big Country, Dreams Stay with You."
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So thinking about like big like '80s drum sounds, like those super like stereo panned, like reverby,
Yep.
echoey.
Reverb for days.
Yeah, like all the stuff that like
Absolutely.
yeah, like all the sounds that I think like bands like Bastille and Fun would discover later.
Yep.
I think all starts from the those kinds of '80s bands. That for 100%.
Oh, did I lose you?
Oh, you might have
Oh,
lost me there for a second. We were talking about.
yep.
I'm back now.
Cool.
So yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So those like that big like stereo panned like reverb for days kinds of sounds, like all from the '80s.
Yeah, very anthemic. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, and I noticed like, and I'll get to this later on, but I feel like Hit the Lights has some songs that are kind of like that also.
Yeah, yeah. Me and Nick were, very influenced by both listening to '80s music with our parents while
Mm-hmm.
we were growing up. So we always have a lot of those references. And if you notice, like a lot of the cover songs we end up doing, like like "How Will I Know" by Whitney Houston or something like that, is always like something from like the '80s or early '90s that has that vibe.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, totally. Or like I love the cover you guys did of "More Than a Feeling"
Oh yeah,
from Punk Goes Classic Rock. Like the harmonies you hit on that bridge are mind blowing.
that was a funny one to do.
Yeah, that one was great too. And just so, before I forget to mention, I think you also have the best cover of "Hey Jealousy."
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I really like your guys' take on that song also, which is one of my like favorite, maybe my favorite song of the '90s, and I'm including all of Nevermind when I say that. But that song like just I keep coming back to that song.
I'm gonna blow your mind right now. For
Okay.
the last 3 weeks straight, every single time I go into my local grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey Jealousy" is on.
No.
It's starting to feel like I'm in some weird like quarantine loop.
Right. Like
It's
you're
starting
in
to like mess with me a little bit.
right. Like you're in like sad Groundhog Day.
Yeah. And like I haven't even gone in on the same day. Like 2 days were Mondays and one was like a Thursday, but still it must be like play at the same time or something. I'd hate to be one of those workers.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, because you just hear it every day. When I worked, I remember when I worked
It's
at
the all hate jealousy station. That's all they play.
I had a really great sketch. I wrote a sketch with my back when shows happened. I had a sketch with my.
Remember those?
I do. They were the wonderful times. My band had our first three shows planned for, and then slowly by slowly they got knocked down. But But my sketch group, I wrote this like desk piece because we were doing like our news segment, and I wrote this sketch where I think the only comprehensive gun control you need is before you can buy a gun, you have to be able to listen to "Hey Jealousy" without bursting into tears. Otherwise, otherwise, no mas, no
Yeah,
mas.
you're just not emotionally ready.
Yeah, exactly. So you're growing up in Rochester, and was there a time when when you knew that you were going to pursue music as a career and you were going to like start playing music?
Yeah, I mean, my music was kind of in my family a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like my great grandfather played guitar, my grandfather played guitar, my dad played guitar, but none of them were ever like in bands or played live or anything like that.
Right.
But still, like I was around the guitar uh, growing up, and somewhere in school, I realized it was a way to get chicks, and so of course I was like, yes,
Uh-huh.
this is something that will make girls want to talk to me. I need this, and I already kind of know how to do this, so now I'm going to really try to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, at first everyone's telling you, no, don't take it too serious. Parents don't want you to take it serious. Teachers don't want you to take it serious, and obviously that makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I think, you dream as a kid, and I just
Yeah.
once I got into to high school, I thought about it more and more. Started to be the only thing I could think about.
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to meet other kids, and they play instruments, and they skateboard, and they can totally hang out today after school, and all of a sudden you start playing instruments together, and it turns into a
Yeah.
band. And as soon as you get that little taste, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna figure out how to do this.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think once I found out that, like, once I grew up a little more and found out that people were local people in the punk and hardcore scene were actually booking tours and saving up money and getting vans and going out and playing shows, like, they were just on floors or whatever, but like that seems so cool.
Yeah.
um, and once I realized that that's what like all my favorite bands were doing, and there were local dudes doing that, I was like, oh, I could totally do this. And it just kind of like grew from there.
I am vibing so hard with you right now, Kev, because yeah, I remember so perfectly like when you get that first kind of taste, that rush of like playing a song or like playing a song in front of people and getting a response back is it's intoxicating. And I have chased that feeling in different fields since I was like maybe a sophomore in high school. And if anything, it also I feel like I had a sense of identity from it
Hmm.
at the time. When you started playing guitar, what songs were you learning to play?
So I mean, at first, the funny thing is, like, my dad got me a guitar for Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
and got my first guitar at the Great House of Guitars in Rochester, world famous. Shout out, they're
Mm-hmm.
very awesome. Um, and I mean, I got this guitar, and I was so stoked to finally have a guitar. And I sat down, and I realized I don't know, even like, I didn't know how to play or where to start or what I even wanted to play. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the only guitar music I listened to at the time was Van Halen, and it wasn't like I was gonna pick up the guitar and be
Oh
Van
yeah.
Halen. So like, where do you
Yeah.
start? So I literally started just trying to write songs,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it for like a really really long time. I didn't know chords. I didn't know how this was even supposed to work. I just kind of like put things together that sounded good, that I liked,
Mm-hmm.
and made up little songs. And it was later on in school that like people were like, "Oh, do you know how to play this song?" And I would just like, probably lie and be like, "Totally," and then learn it when I went home and show
Right.
up the next day and try to, make my way through it. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I basically learned by just trying to make music.
100% punk rock. Just dive right in. I
Yeah,
dig it.
punk rock, or like, too stupid to know that you could just like learn tabs, or like, go buy a book on how to do it.
Right. Or I don't even know if like Ultimate Guitar was a thing then, but that once I discovered that, I was just like, oh, okay, it's just numbers, and then I just put everything together. I
Yeah,
did.
I mean the internet wasn't really like it is. It's not like YouTube didn't exist. Also, for some context for anybody, I just realized that I'm really old here.
Oh yeah.
There was no YouTube. You couldn't just be like, how to play guitar. You were just like, I have a guitar. Now what?
Mm-hmm. And and this is in Rochester when you're starting. And were you eventually active in like the local scene?
Oh yeah, very. Once I got into high school, I think right in the beginning in ninth grade, once once we got our band going, we were ready to like go out and play shows. We had like we had no problems with like putting ourselves in front of people and looking like idiots until the first show and
Uh
we had
huh.
to walk on stage and then all of a sudden it was terrifying.
Right.
But but yeah, it was super fun and I try to stay a big part of the scene, or at least as much as I can. Even to this day, got a lot of friends who are still in local hardcore bands and stuff. Try
Uh
to
huh.
go every time I'm in town and try to pump their stuff every time they put something new out. A lot of good stuff there. It's easy and fun to be part of the scene.
That's very awesome. Who are some of your favorite hardcore bands from that area that I should check out?
From so for the local guys, the weight we carry, uh, some of the best dudes. They got a bunch of new stuff out. Dog Bites Back, super good record. Um, I got friends in a band called Reps. They're not around anymore, but they just broke up a little while ago. Their stuff's great.
Mm-hmm.
They're a really good one. Uh, Band called Druce is really good. They got a lot of cool stuff. A lot of good bands.
Excellent. I'm writing all these down because to to show you how uncool I am. I just found out about Earth Crisis like this
Oh
year
shit.
also. That was kind of a new one for me. Like the whole vegan straight edge hardcore thing.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
yeah. Earth Crisis was like the biggest thing when I was coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were like massive, and I had no idea that they were the reason everybody in the scene who's vegan is vegan. Like it can
Yeah,
all be traced back to them. Like I used to
yeah.
think I knew what hardcore music what hardcore music was because it's like I know I listened to Black Flag. I got Damage in the first 4 years, and that's basically that's like the hardcore equivalent of saying, oh, I really like Imagine Dragons.
I mean, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, Black Flag rules, um, but yeah. I mean, that's like there's
Yeah.
been like another like 30 years of the genre since then.
Yeah, that's like the your first little taste.
Yeah.
And was this first band was this first band a hardcore band?
I think we started out as a pop punk band,
Mm-hmm.
and then we realized that we were just not very good at making pop punk. Uh, but if we started getting into hardcore, like as we were doing the band, and
Mm-hmm.
when we tried to make heavier stuff, it was also terrible, but at least it looked like people in the crowd liked it. So we kind of rolled with that, and then we changed our sound.
Uh-huh.
Uh, it was very like quintessential your first band, very very bad and a whole lot of fun. It was
Uh-huh.
awesome.
Oh, 100%. I'm thinking back to my own for early band days and just feeling just like waves of good times coming back. And then so how does Hit the Lights come about?
So I guess through the years, you start different bands and you try to chase that dream, and some things work out, some things don't work out.
Mm-hmm.
In doing so, at one point, I was in a band back home with
Mm-hmm.
some friends. Actually, some of the guys from Such Gold. It was an old hardcore band we were in together, and we had like a little weekend tour booked that got canceled, and we were all bummed. And I was like, "Oh man, so looking forward to going on tour." And I get this text message from my friend Nate, and he was like, "Hey man, you still play guitar, right?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I play guitar still."
Mm-hmm.
And just out of nowhere, it's like, "Hey, do you want to come try out for Hit the Lights?" And I was like, "When do you need me there?" And he's like, "Can you get to New Jersey by tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there." So I dropped everything and learned a bunch of songs overnight and
Mm-hmm.
Drove down to Jersey and spent a couple days with them, and we worked out some songs right there in the studio and had a lot of fun together. I was very nervous,
Mm-hmm.
and immediately they were like my best friends. It was as if, it was kind of like a missing link situation.
Sure. Yeah.
And I drove home not knowing if I was going to be in, and they called me a couple days later, and they're like, "Hey, you're in." And yeah, been trying not to leave ever since.
That's awesome. And they were in the studio in New Jersey at the time.
Yeah, yeah, they were getting ready to do skip school,
Ah, okay.
so
Okay,
so
yeah.
I went down for skip school.
Gotcha. So that
Like,
so you like really were like thrown into the deep end.
yeah, and it was great. I mean, it was so much fun. It was hard to tell my my family and at the time girlfriend that, oh yeah, I'm about to be gone for like a couple months. Peace. At the drop of a hat like that. But it was super exciting, and I couldn't wait to do it. And I think we left for tour like a week after the record was done, and the first day of tour was my birthday,
Mm-hmm.
which was also like an awesome kind of celebration.
That's
And
awesome,
yeah,
man. That's awesome, man. And was that Warp Tour that year, or was that like a club tour?
uh, that those were all club tours. We did Warp Tour the next year though.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that Warp Tour again, just like seminal fixture of my life for so many years. I'm curious what your experience of being a band on Warp Tour was like, because I've heard like bits and pieces from a few friends I have that did the whole tour. How does a touring festival thing like Warp Tour compare to like doing your own tour like in clubs?
I mean, Warp Tour is a blast, but it's probably the hardest tour you'll do.
Uh huh.
It's everybody travels together for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
but all the shows, uh, were super far apart. So if a show was 10 hours, you maybe have 11, or if a drive was 10 hours, you maybe have 11 hours to do that 10-hour drive overnight. So if anything goes wrong, you're kind of screwed out of the whole next day, and that might not leave you any time to sleep depending on how you're doing, who's driving and stuff like that. So if you're doing it in
Mm-hmm.
a van and trailer, it can be super grueling.
Yeah.
um, which is why everyone tries to do it in any other option other than that.
Right.
It's very hard. But they give a lot of young bands a lot of cool opportunities. Like you can sign up for things like you can be like the cook for the after parties every night.
Uh huh.
They do like a little cookout every single night for the bands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and young bands will sign on to like serve the food, and sometimes they play, and it's cool because you get to like meet people that way.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be stuff where you could sign up to like build the stages, and there was all sorts of things to kind of get your way in. And then obviously they always had local stages. Warped Tour was super cool. It's really a big loss, I think, to the whole music scene in general that we lost that. So many different genres were embraced. So many different artists came out of that. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I remember discovering like so many cool bands just from like walking around like, "Oh, what's that?" Oh, okay. Well, the next band on my list doesn't play for like another hour. I can stand to watch. I got 20 minutes to watch this set. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like it's I've always heard it described as this kind of like traveling carnival slash like circus kind of vibe Warp Tour. I never got to play it, but I went like so many years. I remember I think I first heard of All Time Low because I found like an Emerald Record sampler on the ground at the Baltimore show.
Okay.
And it was and it had like one of like the first four songs they ever recorded on it. When you're touring in a situation like that, and I might have my more modern like way of thinking about gear on now, but do you have a more like stripped down rig for when you're doing Warped Tour because it does move so quickly and you have to like get on and off stage so quick, or is it pretty much did you pretty much use the same setup that you would like normally?
For Hit the Lights, I actually always kind of liked having a stripped down setup.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get too complicated with things. Even
Yeah.
now, I still don't really get too complicated. I like when things are simple for when things start to go wrong, which is, always. Things are always going wrong. So when things are the most simple, I feel like it's easier to fix in the moment. Um, as much as I like, as much as I love gear and nerd out on gear,
Mm-hmm.
uh, not much of like an electrician. Some of those guys can really put together like, a whole pedal board from scratch.
Yeah.
Never been one of those guys. So the simple stuff really worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And for Warped Tour, we were one of the bands that got our gear was usually loaded on the truck. So that
Uh-huh.
made it a lot easier for us. We didn't have to like, bring it through stuff, but that can be hard when you have to drag gear all the way through the entire campgrounds to get to stage and back.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it is definitely best to bring your lightest, smallest, easiest stuff that you also don't care if it gets rained on because that might happen too.
Yeah, totally. Like, cause the show goes on no matter what, unless it's like physically unsafe for the show to continue happen. I remember
Yeah.
getting
So a lot of rain, a lot of mud, a lot of fun.
oh yeah, I remember getting like so muddy like at like 9 o'clock in the morning during Billy Talent, one year. Um, yeah, because I think about like the when you're like dragging like a half stack and like a 40-pound head through like Merriweather Post Pavilion and be like, why did I think I needed this?
Yeah, yeah. You start thinking about buying some combo amps real quick.
Exactly. Or even now, like that like Seymour Duncan Power Stage or like the Orange Terror, you could
Hmm.
you could just
Yeah, the
like
Orange Terrors is actually fantastic for certain things. If you got that and you got a Kemper, now, now you're fine. I mean, hell, post Corona, you can just zoom into the concert, stay in your PJs. Fuck it.
yeah, exactly. Have you done any like live stream concerts or like Zoom performances yet during quarantine?
I have not. I would love to do some kind of band thing. Joywave talked about doing something, and I was super excited about that. I hope that still goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I haven't done anything myself. I have way too much anxiety to do that.
I
But I would
feel you,
love
man.
to. It sounds really cool.
Well, because I just saw I just saw Newfound Glory do like a live stream for the 20th anniversary of the self title, and I think All Time Low are going to use the same studio to do some live stream stuff. So if Joywave or Hit the Lights decide to do anything, I would definitely pay money for it.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
The reason I bring it up is because I did a Zoom my first like Zoom stand up set a few weeks ago, and it was fun but so different.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine not having the actual audience laughing must be rough.
Yeah, there's a the host I was doing it was pretty he was a pretty good laugher, and I also had a couple of like fun jokes where I would just like tilt my computer back for like, oh, this is the ant angle. Every when you're on Zoom with your aunt, they just want you looking up at God. Uh, um,
I can't imagine right now what football players are doing because I've been watching the football. There's nobody in the stands. It's super weird.
I know.
Got to be even more weird when you're trying to win.
I imagine so. And it's even weird when like on TV they try to make it seem more normal. I was watching a soccer game, and they had an audio track of like fan of chanting and booing, but every now and then they would cut to a wide shot in a completely empty arena, and it was like the ghosts of the past were watching and cheering for the game. It's like
It's so weird.
I would rather just like embrace it because it's kind of fun to hear people like because you normally don't get to hear players shout like things to each other. So I think it's kind of cool to hear that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you join the band. Skip School Starts Fights comes out. You're just kind of like thrown into touring. Did you guys ever get to tour internationally?
Oh yeah, we did a lot of my favorite tours are overseas.
Mm-hmm.
We did the UK. I don't know, upwards of 10 times.
Nice.
It feels like we played Slam Dunk Festival just about every year. It
Mm-hmm.
was like an annual holiday for us, like second Christmas. So much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Did a lot of cool tours over there too. We did a really good one. I know at the end there with 4 Years Strong. That was a lot of fun. The Pure Noise tour.
Oh, that's yeah. I feel I remember that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that was a really fun one. I know we did one a long time ago with a co-headliner with Bayside. I think in like 2009. That was a
Mm-hmm.
really fun one too.
Oh, awesome.
Um, yeah, so we've done that. We've done a couple tours in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite one there was definitely it was us and Fireworks and Newfound Glory, and it was just one of the best tours of my whole life. That was my first time touring with Newfound Glory, who was like a big pop punk favorite for me. So that
Oh
was really
yeah,
fun.
that's awesome. And like Australia, like I hear like the crowds in Australia, if they love you, like just are completely fucking insane.
Yeah, they were fantastic. Couldn't have asked for a better time in Australia. It was awesome. Um,
That's very cool. Have you?
and then we did Japan a lot, and that's actually like probably my favorite place in the whole world.
Okay, this is great. I was hoping that you played Japan because I would love to talk more about this. Japan is my favorite place I've ever traveled in the world, and I've been a lot of places. Um,
I feel like it's the closest thing you can get to like going to another planet,
mm-hmm.
and obviously I mean that in a very good and respectful way.
Oh yeah,
I mean like
same here.
it's the most out of your comfort zone and out of things that are familiar to you that you
Mm-hmm.
can possibly be while still being on Earth. And I obviously think that that's super important to experience in your lifetime. But like everything is different. The architecture is different, the landscape is different, the food is different, the language is different,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also incredible that it also gives you like a really awesome picture of the entire world just in that one experience. I think you start to realize that everything is awesome.
I could not agree more. Um, when I first landed, the first time I ever went to Japan, I felt the same way. Like Tokyo is like Tokyo specifically. Again, like you feel like you're in the. I felt in the future, but it's also like the land of everything I grew up. Like Akibara, if like 13-year-old me could design a town, it would be Akibara. It would just be like snacks and comic books and video games.
Yeah, the
And
whole place is like is definitely like it's too fun. Um, there's just like something to do that's just like awesome every single place you go, and everybody's super nice, and they make a lot of cool stuff,
mhm.
and the whole place is magic. There's like a cool history. They got cool plans for the future. It's a very magical place.
Oh yeah, and then to be in like the most futuristic, like high tech neon saturated part of town, and then like you go a couple blocks over, and you're at like a temple, and everyone's like, and it's like the most tranquil, like serene
Yeah,
kind of
and
experience.
it's like quiet and peaceful,
Yeah.
and you're like, you're looking at signs, made out of, trees that
Mm-hmm.
have been there before your country, even
Was an
had people.
idea.
It's like wild to think about.
Oh yeah. Who did you tour with over there?
Um, that is a great question where I gotta dig in the old brain here.
Oh no,
Try
it's
to
totally.
remember. I know my favorite one was Hit the Lights Every Avenue in Valencia.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I remember that.
that
I
one was a
remember all of them.
lot of fun. We definitely had Valencia there at least. I think we might have done twice with Valencia and maybe even once with Shane acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, we've gone over a couple times where it was just ourselves playing with Japanese bands, and we've done some festivals. Uh, hard to remember some of them, but we drink a lot in Japan, or at least
Oh,
we did back then.
I I'm very familiar with this as well. My
Yeah,
goal.
you can just drink in the streets there. It's like the whole country is like, Vegas, so you can be a real idiot American, and especially when it's you and all your buddies, it's it was too fun not to pass up.
Oh yeah, and then you run into a group of salarymen who have knocked off work. You just yell "Kampai" and you have friends for life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean,
That's
it's like New York where you can just always run into somebody,
hmm
and you know, uh, everyone there is so nice, and we were always having such a good time that we got in a whole lots of attempts at conversations with strangers. Sometimes cool
hmm
conversations. It was definitely my favorite place. I would go back to Japan for any reason, anytime.
Oh, same here. If any of your bands need like a roadie or like a tall merch guy, you have my information because I'm always looking for reasons to get back. You know,
Gotcha.
I would I hope you get to tour there again. I talked to Tim from Alistair last year, and they toured Japan relatively recently when their like 20-year album came out. So that would be a
Yeah,
great
they're very
show.
big over there.
Yeah, that would be a great show. You guys, who are your favorite? Do you have any like favorite Japanese bands? Because I got a lot.
Ooh, favorite Japanese bands. You know, there's some that I'm drawing a blank on that were like really close friends. They were awesome, but obviously, it's been years now.
Mm-hmm.
Drawing a blank. But when I was growing up and getting into stuff, I really liked High Standard. They were on
Yeah.
Fat Records,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, they were cool. And I saw X once, and they were awesome.
Oh,
Caught them live, and they were very intense.
that sounds
I know they
awesome.
got a couple cool hardcore bands that I checked out one time while we were there. Pay Money to My Pain was cool. Um, yeah,
Pay
I was
money.
always impressed over there. I mean, you're having a great time the whole time. It's easy to find more fun, but yeah, every band we met was always cool, and it was so fun watching them play.
Yeah, I've heard like Tim was telling me about like their former tour mates in the band Elegarden. Like they would like play the smaller venues because they're like they found them more fun on certain tours, and then they would sound like they would go completely crazy and then still like not miss notes in the songs, like still sound like the same as the record.
Oh
Um,
yeah, they're better musicians, absolutely. They all whooped all of our asses the whole time. It was great.
right. If you're looking for cool Japanese bands, I've got a bunch that I'm super passionate about that I think you could dig. Um, if you like High Standard, you probably know about Secret Seven Line. They're a really cool skate punk
Oh,
band.
that is the band I was trying to think of. I love those dudes.
Oh my god, I love them. I spent like 5,000 yen buying all of their albums at Tower Records the last time I
Oh, yeah.
was in Tokyo.
Shit.
I love them. Another band I really like over there, pop punk band is Septiluck. They're really awesome. Um,
Okay, yeah, I haven't checked that one out.
they're really good. What my favorite band in Japan broke up this year. They were called the Winking Owl. I really enjoyed their stuff. They had an album called Thank You Love Letter that came out last year. That was like my favorite album of 2019.
Okay, nice, nice.
They're sort of like I'm trying to think of how to describe them. They're sort of like on the cusp between like pop punk and and J-pop. They're really I really dig them. And then Scott from Alistair has a band with with some members of Elgarden called Mono Eyes, who just put out a new album
Okay,
that I really enjoyed. So I would definitely check them out as well.
cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but yeah, shout out to Secret Seven Line.
Yeah,
Awesome dudes.
yes. If you're listening to this and you haven't heard of Secret Seven Line, go down a rabbit hole. They're excellent. What's your experience of Japanese crowds? What are the crowds like when you're doing shows in Japan?
Amazing. I mean, everyone's super polite. Everybody wants like photos and to say hi and stuff, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, people come out. They don't have to. I always appreciate when anybody comes out to a show, but especially if it's a bunch of idiots from the other side of the world, you don't even speak the language, and you want to come out and sing along, like that's incredible. Like honestly, still to this day, can't really wrap my mind around that, and I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. It's really like when you have moments like that. It's because I feel like, and I feel like this with comedy a lot. Also, it can be very easy to kind of get bogged down in all of the annoying things that come with show business, but the like when you have those like really beautiful moments of connection, like even just the fact that I'm talking to you right now, and you were part of this these records that like enriched my life so much and like made me like think about things differently and like feel things. That kind of like connection and like sense of community is like everything to me.
Absolutely. And like, it's one thing to make music and put it out in the world. When you see, it get good reception, like it feels fantastic. But it's another thing when you go and you and your best friends play it to the world and you can physically see the reaction and hear, your words sung back to you, or somebody, doing the drum fills in the air, whatever, people crowd surfing, having a good time, dancing, whatever your music is making people do. Like that's a feeling that definitely unmatched for me.
100%,
And
man.
it's something that I think we're all gonna miss while we sit in our homes for a long time now.
I agree. I can tell you that like as soon as like the day after like there's a vaccine that's like will work and like as soon as I'm able to, I cannot wait to just jump into like the sweatiest craziest circle pit. Um I want to get like kicked in. I want to get kicked in the face again at like a hardcore show. Or now that I'm like 30, like everyone in the crowd's like, "Can we mosh only on the last song? I got work next tomorrow."
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask you also. So Skip School Start Fights come out, and then the going into the next album, which was Invecta. Yeah, right.
Yes, Invicta. Yep.
Which I think I wanted to say we were talking about like big stereo, like epic sounding songs. I feel like some of the tones you got on this album are very much. I feel like I heard other bands do also. So I feel like this Invecta is kind of an underrated record for you guys. I know that's also was that album was on a major label, and I was curious what your experience during that time was.
So it was supposed to come out on a major label. Razor and Tie is where it ended up coming out, which often
Mm-hmm.
people think it's a major, but it's actually independently owned. It's just very large,
Oh, okay.
um, which was cool for them. But they're actually, as far as I know, not around anymore. But they put out a bunch of cool stuff like Brand New and
Mm-hmm. Yes, they
Saves
did.
the Day and stuff. But yeah, we signed to a major in that time between those records, and you know, we thought the whole world was in front of us. Pop punk was killing it at radio,
Mm-hmm.
and we were watching all these bands blow up, and we were signed into a major label, and we had new management. And we loved them, and we had a lot of vision and a lot of plans. But the business side just kind of like I think started pushing everything back longer and longer, and kind of they wanted to get their hands into like our heads, how we were writing and stuff, and that was I could kind of see it like messing with some of the guys. Nick was having a hard time even writing at all because they like put him through too much stress with all this stuff, a lot of pressure. We
Mm-hmm.
were doing a lot of co-writes with different people from different genres and a lot of study trying to learn like what works and
Mm-hmm.
what's working for this band and why it's working and like oh, pop punk is like doesn't have a moment right now. The next thing is alternative radio. You got to make something that doesn't lose your fans but can like change into something else, and like
Right.
there's all these different words and pressures people stack on top of you, and ended up being a very difficult record to make. And in the process, the major label got a new like president or CEO or one of the big wigs, and he was like, if you're a rock band and haven't sold 100,000 records yet, you're gone. So we were free. But at this point, we had wasted a whole lot of time. So we basically had to take the record that we were trying to make. We had to
Yeah.
take like whatever songs we had and try to make a record out of it for Razor and Tie. And like, I think we made some really cool moments on there, some really big songs. And I know it was like weird for our fans and it didn't get the love that maybe it could have, but definitely got some jams on there.
Oh, absolutely. Like Gravity is a great song. Earthquake is really great as well. I am the I I've I'm putting myself in that position, and when you get people that are not creative people, who are business people, approaching you with like formulas and like do and saying do this and then putting dollar signs in front of you, I gotta imagine that can be incredibly stressful. I never understand why like record label executives do that. I always figure like if you sign a band, you've probably heard them, and like why don't you just sign them for what you've heard and want them to do that?
Yeah,
It makes no
it was
sense to
very
me.
confusing for me on that level as well. The the A&R girl that signed us, I mean, she was very nice at first, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I thought she liked us. For us, I thought she was gonna be on our team, but you know, I understand. Obviously, I got to see that world a little bit, and you know, it's a business. Numbers matter for them.
Right.
So you know, they took a chance on us, and it was really cool that they did. But I think they were trying to make us something that we weren't. I would have
Mm-hmm.
loved to have been whatever it was they were trying to do, but I don't think it was us. But it was a cool learning experience. It was awesome.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I imagine that there's, and I'm sure that I don't know if there's like people that you met during that met during that time as well that you still know, but I I imagine even though it didn't work out quite the way that experience wanted to be, I imagine it's there's something positive to glean from it
Yeah,
somewhere.
absolutely. I learned a lot through that. It was cool. I think it really pushed um, it through the learning and the co-write stuff. Like it kind of pushed myself and the way I thought about music a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you know, I always love anybody that can give that to me. So I was stoked on that, and that's, you know, we all challenged ourselves that whole record, whether it came out good or not, is a different thing. But you know, we challenged ourselves to make something that was different but still kind of worked. And yeah, I agree that songs like Gravity and Earthquake and stuff like that are really big songs and were still really fun. That
Oh
was
yeah.
kind of where I started getting interested in production. Also, it was like right before that record, so
Mm-hmm.
it was cool to. I also learned a lot in the studio and started asking questions instead of just like, you know, sitting around watching TV or, you know, playing an instrument. I'd start being like, okay, so why are you EQing this? What does EQ do? Why would you do this, not this? You know,
Mm-hmm.
starting to learn and you know, what piece of gear is this, and started making lists and buying things that I saw in the studio and using things I knew that worked. And yeah, that was kind of where that started for me, was that record.
Oh yeah, that's a great opportunity to learn about recording. Absolutely. Is on the subject of songwriting, just because this is something I'm continuously trying to improve on as well. Is there any kind of like boilerplate like songwriting uh, tips or thing advice that you've learned over the years, maybe during that time that you apply like when you work with other songwriters now, or like is there common things that you find yourself telling bands when you go into record or produce?
I mean, I guess, you know, I have my own little secrets that are definitely common. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot for me starts with mindset first, um, which sounds so like, I don't know, like almost mystical or something. But you know, I like to think about the song more than like playing an instrument when you're writing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that I'm more writing it from the perspective of, you know, what does the listener want to hear, as well as what am I trying to make here.
Right.
I feel like that helps kind of cut out some of the fat, cut out some of the boringness, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's not really any one thing. I think everything's going to be different depending on the song and the artist and the moment that you're trying to capture.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really relate to that idea of like trimming the fat. Tended for a long time to have like very long intros, like 30 to 35 second intros before I'd get into to verses, and that's something I've been trying to get a little bit better at.
Yeah, I
But
mean, and I mean, there's no rules to this shit too. So like, you know, if you're trying to make a pop song, Well, okay, so I shouldn't say there's no rules. There's a bunch of rules. You should always know the rules before you break them. But,
Right. Yeah.
if you're making a pop song, yeah, of course, you're not going to do, a 4 minute, uh, you know, atmospheric intro into the song. It would never work as a pop song.
Sure.
But in another genre, you know, if you're trying to do something else, it might be the exact thing that ties the entire record together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always good to be creative and like, try to break as many rules as you can possibly get away with.
Gotcha. I'm gonna keep this in mind as I continue to toil in my apartment here while
Yeah, it's good.
doing.
It's good to trim the fat, but it's good to know what pieces are the fat, though.
Sure, sure. No,
But
that
it's always going to change.
gotcha. On the subject of pop songs, I was listening to a little bit of Joywave, and you're their touring bass player.
Yes.
Those songs like those songs are are incredibly catchy and danceable. How did you get involved with playing with them?
So we're old friends from back home. They're also from Rochester.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And when you started playing with them, did they basically just hand you a bunch of songs and and here are the bass lines, or did you were you making are you like creating bass lines for the songs?
No, no. Right now, so we have a new record that came out in March,
Mm-hmm.
and the record is phenomenal. I absolutely love it. But that record was basically finished when I got the phone call 2 years ago. Well, two and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, so I mean, the record was already there. So at that point, it was learn a bunch of learn 3 records worth of bass lines and get ready for tour. And I was very happy to do it. Honestly, one of my favorite bands. So uh, it was a call that I was hoping would come for a very long time. Thrilled that it did.
That's big. That's spectacular, man. And that's and to get to play with like a favorite band again, another form of the dream, and that you're living all over again. How excellent.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's also cool. Like they're my friends from home.
Mm-hmm.
So when their old band broke up and they posted the first Joywave song, hey, we got a new band, here's the song. It was just on MySpace. Checked it out. It's like, yeah, this is awesome. Hit them up. Please send me anything you got from this. Like this band's gonna be great. And getting to watch them grow from that to packing this small 100 person club back home called the Bug Jar
Mm-hmm.
on Thursdays, and then watching them get signed and get a bunch of stuff on the radio and stuff like that to all of a sudden get to play in the band and play Madison Square Garden and all that stuff is very cool.
Wow, you guys played the Garden.
Yeah, we opened.
That's even still just being on a stage in that venue. That's amazing. Congratulations. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, that was an absolute highlight for me.
That is that is spectacular, man. And the new Wave record is called what?
It's called Possession.
Possession.
Yes.
Excellent. I will give that a very thorough listen.
I
Um,
know I'm biased as hell, but I can honestly say it's one of my favorite records of the year, and I can promise that it would have been one of my favorite records of the year if I was not the bass player.
that's excellent. Well,
They
cool,
they,
man.
they never let me down. The songs are incredible. The production, it's a great headphones record. The production's really cool. The mixing is fantastic on that one,
Excellent.
and I don't think there's a single song that lets me down, and they're all super different, which is fun too. So
Very cool. I've got some excellent Sony headphones I got in Tokyo that are great for that this kind of band. So I'm definitely going to listen to it on those. They're,
absolutely.
that's awesome, man. And what's the current status of Hit the Lights? Do you guys think you'll be doing anything in the future? Do you want to do anything in the future?
Yeah, we do actually. Me and Nick talked just the other day for a minute, and he ended it with, "Hey man, if you got any songs, send them over. Maybe we make something." So I'm hoping that happens, and it'd be cool to make a record. And I know we're definitely slotted right now to play Four Chord Festival in Pittsburgh in 2021. with The Used and Blink-182. Right now, that's the only show we got in the future. But maybe we'll do a little something around that. Maybe we can bring out the Goalkeeper guys.
Yeah.
Make something cool.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to see that. That would be awesome. And of course, when shows are in New York again, I will be the guy, doing air guitar on your side of the stage. That'll be who I am. Are you going to be producing anything else soon?
Yes, I'm hoping to. I'm in talks with someone right now, but obviously it's not official, so I don't want to say anything yet. But
Sure,
might
sure.
just be, might just be doing a song here and there for a little while. But yeah, I got some things, in the works, but nothing crazy yet.
Awesome. Well,
Still just taking it low and slow.
totally. Well, right now in this year and in this situation that the world's at, low and slow is, I feel like, the best way to operate.
Yeah, the current situation's kind of putting a pause on a lot of stuff right now, but
yeah,
hoping, fingers crossed, that things come back. So we'll see.
yeah, same here. And well, Kevin, I really appreciate that you took time to talk to me. And like I said, the production on the new Goalkeeper EP is incredible. And Hit the Lights music has those records have been a fixture in my car for a while. I remember driving my 2003 green Ford Focus around suburban Baltimore, just like after leaving work at Target, just like blasting like, burn it down, I'll burn this town behind me.
Nice.
So thank you for your time today, and thanks for so much great music. And fingers crossed, if my music career goes a certain way, you'll be hearing from me again sometime. So thank you again.
Absolutely, reach out. I'm always down to take a peek at demos and give people just thoughts and little critiques or whatever, if that's something anybody's interested in or whatever. Everybody's just out here trying to make better music together. It benefits everybody, so I'm game.
Well, awesome. Well, when I'll let you know when this is coming out, and you might be getting a Bandcamp link from me also.
Great.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Anything else we can plug before? Anything else I can plug before we get out here?
No, just check out that new Joywave record, Possession, and the new Goalkeeper record, Life in Slow Motion. Give that a bunch of spins. Those dudes deserve it. Their whole career was ready to take off before this COVID thing, and they're sitting around home, putting everything on hold, and all they got is these Spotify streams. So we got to give them a lot.
Oh yeah, I've listened to it a bunch already, and dear listener, if you love pop punk, you'll love Goalkeeper. So listen to me and Kevin and check out that EP. Thanks
Absolutely.
again.
Put it on some good speakers and turn it up loud. You'll enjoy it.
Hell yeah, dude. Thanks so much, Kevin. This has been great. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Will.
All right, that is Kevin Mahoney from Hit the Lights and bass player for Joywave. As Kevin said, Joywave's newest record, Possession, is out now wherever you get your music. And also the new Goalkeeper EP that he produced, Life in Slow Motion, is now available wherever you get your music as well. So definitely give those a spin and support your some excellent musicians who cannot play shows right now. And I want to thank Kevin for his time and for his candor. That was a really great conversation with someone who's made a lot of music that has meant a lot to me over the years. So thanks, Kevin. I sincerely appreciate it. And if you guys enjoyed this and think a friend who might want to listen to this podcast as well, we're available wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music. If you want to get a free month of Stitcher Premium when you sign up, you can go to Stitcher.com/premium and get 1 month off of your subscription free with the promo code AWESOME. That is Stitcher.com/premium, and use the promo code AWESOME for a free month. And I also want to give a shout out to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level, Mary Beth Mooney. Thank you so much for your support. I sincerely appreciate it. And if you guys are curious, you can go to patreon.com/awesomedisaster and check out some of the things that I'm doing over there. And I appreciate that you guys took a time out of your day to listen to this. And if you're listening to this way in the future, at the beginning of the episode, Kevin and I are talking about the first presidential debate of 2020, which was a complete disaster, mostly because of the incumbent president. In fact, not even mostly, entirely. And at the end of this said week, this is also the same week that the president was diagnosed as positive for COVID-19, and then I would say a healthy amount of people in his circle were diagnosed as positive as well. So really weird week, but it was wonderful to be able to cap it with an excellent conversation with Kevin. So thank you guys so much for being here. I sincerely appreciate it. And I will see you next time between Awesome and Disaster. Stay safe and wear a mask.